I measured the living room 3 times. 12 feet, not 15. That missing 3 feet led me to discover 47 hidden cameras watching the entire neighborhood from behind fake walls. The alarm buzzed at 6:30 a.m., same as always. I rolled out of bed, feet hitting the cold hardwood floor of my apartment. 23 years in the painting business, and I still felt that little flutter of anticipation before a new job. Coffee first, black, no sugar, then load the van. The morning air carried that crisp March bite as I checked my equipment list twice. Primer, brushes, drop cloths, laser level. The Maple Grove Avenue job should be straightforward. Interior walls and what the client said was a 1987 colonial. Amanda Martinez had been specific during our phone consultation. Premium materials, precise coverage, no shortcuts. I liked clients who cared about quality work. My van rumbled to life, the engine settling into its familiar rhythm. I'd painted hundreds of homes in Riverside Heights over the past 15 years. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained properties, neighbors who took pride in their investments. This felt like any other Tuesday morning job. 847 Maple Grove Avenue sat quietly among mature oak trees, their branches just starting to show green buds. The brick exterior looked solid, typical settling cracks near the foundation, nothing unusual. I parked in the driveway, noting the pristine landscaping. Somebody took care of this place. The front door opened before I could knock. "You're exactly on time. Good." Amanda Martinez stood in the doorway, her smile tight and practiced. She was already dressed in business attire despite the early hour, dark blazer, hair pulled back severely. Professional, but something about her posture seemed rigid. "Morning, Mrs. Martinez. Ready to get started on those walls?" I hefted my equipment case, but she didn't step aside immediately. "I need you to understand, this isn't just any paint job." Her dark eyes cataloged each piece of equipment I carried. "The walls require specific primer thickness, exactly 2 coats, no shortcuts." I nodded professionally. 23 years in business, you learn to handle particular clients. That's how I work anyway. Quality takes time. The foyer smelled of vanilla candles and cleaning products, that artificial freshness you get from too much air freshener. Amanda's eyes darted from my equipment to my face, then back again. "I'll be working from home today, so I'll check your progress regularly." Her tone suggested this wasn't negotiable. "I hope that won't be a problem." "No problem at all. I keep detailed logs of my work anyway." She finally stepped aside, but I felt her watching as I set up in the main hallway. The house felt quiet. Not peaceful quiet, more like holding its breath quiet. I began measuring the main hallway for primer calculations, my laser level casting its familiar red line across cream-colored walls. The line steady, precise. But something nagged at me immediately. The hallway felt longer than it should be, something my experienced eye noticed without conscious thought. You develop instincts after measuring thousands of rooms. Spatial relationships become second nature, like a carpenter's eye for square or a mechanic's ear for engine trouble. This hallway, the proportions felt off. "How much primer per square foot?" Amanda appeared beside me, arms crossed. "Depends on the substrate. These walls look like they've been painted multiple times." I ran my hand along the surface, feeling the slight texture of previous coats. "I'll need about a gallon per 350 square feet for proper coverage." She nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on my laser level. "And you need all those measurements?" "Prevents waste, ensures even coverage." I kept working, but Amanda lingered. Most clients asked a few questions, then left me alone. This felt different, like being monitored. The laser level read 27 feet for the hallway length. I made a note on my clipboard, writing in the careful block letters I'd used for 2 decades. But something about that number bothered me. 20 minutes later, Amanda appeared again. "How's the progress?" "Still measuring. Want to make sure I order the right amount of materials." "Why so many measurements? Can't you just estimate?" I looked up from my clipboard. "Ma'am, I've been doing this for 23 years. Measure twice, cut once. That's how you avoid expensive mistakes." Her jaw tightened slightly. "Of course. I need this job done efficiently." Moving to the master bedroom, I noticed Amanda hovering closer. The room had good natural light from 2 windows facing east. But the proportions felt wrong here too. The far wall seemed too close to where the hallway ended. I set up my laser level again, the red line cutting across the room. Amanda watched every movement. "Why do you need so many measurements?" she asked, arms crossed tighter now. "Each room has different dimensions. Affects how much primer I need, how I plan my coverage." The laser level read 24 feet from the hallway wall to the exterior wall. I frowned, double-checking the reading. "Just paint what you see. Don't overcomplicate things." But the laser level doesn't lie. In 15 years of professional painting, I'd learned to trust my instruments over my assumptions. Something about these room dimensions didn't add up. The afternoon light streaming through windows highlighted dust motes dancing in the air, but Amanda's presence felt increasingly oppressive. Every time I moved to a new section of wall, she appeared within minutes. Her questions came more frequently, with an edge I couldn't quite identify. "Is that really necessary?" she asked when I pulled out my measuring tape to verify the laser reading. "Yes, ma'am, it is." At noon, I stepped outside for lunch break, grateful for the fresh air. The spring breeze carried the scent of blooming dogwoods from neighboring yards. I ate my sandwich while pacing along the house's exterior brick wall, a habit I'd developed over the years. Walking the perimeter helped me visualize the interior layout. I counted my steps from the front corner to where the master bedroom should end. 27 feet, same as the hallway measurement. But inside, I'd measured only 24 feet of interior space in that bedroom. 3 feet missing. I stopped mid-chew, staring at the brick wall. Old houses have quirks, settling, additions, modifications over the decades, but not missing footage. Not 3 feet of space that should exist but doesn't. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out, scrolling to Tony's number. Tony and I had worked together for 8 years. If anyone would understand what I was seeing, it'd be him. "Something weird about this job," I muttered, thumb hovering over his contact. But what would I say? That the math didn't add up? That my client made me nervous? Instead, I finished my sandwich and headed back inside. Maybe I'd made an error. Maybe the exterior wall wasn't as straight as it looked. Amanda was on the phone in the kitchen when I came back in, her voice carrying down the hallway. Something about installation schedules and monitoring equipment. Probably security system stuff. A lot of people in this neighborhood had fancy setups. I casually remeasured the hallway while she talked. The laser level confirmed my earlier reading. 27 feet from front to back. Then I walked to the master bedroom, set up again. 24 feet. My stomach tightened. In 15 years, I'd never encountered a discrepancy this significant without obvious cause. No chimney chases, no utility runs, no structural elements that would account for missing space. Amanda's conversation grew heated. "No, the timeline can't change. Everything depends on maintaining the schedule." I stared at my measurements, double-checking my notes. The numbers didn't lie. Somewhere in this house, 3 feet of space existed that shouldn't, or didn't exist that should. The vanilla candle scent now seemed cloying, artificial, like it was covering something else. What the hell is going on here? I put my phone away and walked back toward the house, my boots crunching on the gravel driveway. The measurement discrepancy gnawed at me like a splinter under the skin. 3 feet of missing space doesn't just happen. Amanda's voice drifted through the open front door as I approached. "Absolutely not. The schedule cannot be adjusted. Everything depends on maintaining the timeline." I stepped inside and her conversation cut off abruptly. She appeared in the hallway moments later, her demeanor sharper than before. The polite homeowner mask had slipped. "Why are you measuring so much?" she asked, her brown eyes fixed on the laser level in my hand. "I hired you to paint, not conduct a survey." I kept my voice steady. "Accurate measurements ensure proper material coverage, ma'am. I don't want to run short on primer or overestimate the paint needed." Her eyes narrowed. "The previous painter never needed this many measurements. Every professional has their own methods." I clipped the laser level back to my belt. "I've been doing this for 23 years. Precision saves money in the long run." She stepped closer, close enough that I caught a whiff of her perfume mixed with something else, a metallic scent I couldn't place. "I'm sure it does, but perhaps you could be a bit more efficient?" The way she watched my every movement made the hallway feel smaller, like the walls were pressing inward. I'd had demanding clients before, but this felt different. This felt like surveillance. I'll work as efficiently as quality allows, I said. Outside, a neighbor's dog started barking persistently. Amanda's head snapped toward the sound, her jaw clenching tight. Some people don't mind their own business, she muttered, more to herself than to me. I pretended to study my notes while watching her reaction. The barking seemed to agitate her in a way that went beyond normal annoyance. I'll be running errands for the next hour, she announced suddenly. Please focus on the bedroom prep work. Stay out of the hallway. The primer needs proper ventilation to cure. That made no sense. Primer doesn't need special ventilation time, and I'd barely applied any yet. But I nodded. Yes, ma'am. She grabbed her purse and keys, pausing at the front door. Remember, just paint what you see, nothing more. The emphasis on nothing more sent a chill down my spine. After her car pulled out of the driveway, I waited 5 minutes, then walked to my van and called Tony. Collins Professional Painting, Tony speaking. It's me. I need you to swing by this job site when you get a chance. Something's not right about the wall measurements. Missing space? Like a hidden room? I stared at the house's brick exterior, counting windows and mentally calculating the interior layout again. Maybe. Or maybe I'm losing my mind. Brett, in 8 years, I've never known you to lose your mind over measurements. What's the address? 847 Maple Grove Avenue. It's the Victorian with the green shutters. I can be there in an hour, finishing up a bathroom job on Cedar Street. Thanks, Tony. And bring your laser level. I want a second opinion on these numbers. The neighborhood felt unusually quiet for a Tuesday afternoon. Most houses showed no signs of life. No cars in driveways, no people in yards, no children playing. Just empty windows staring back at me. Walking back toward the house, I noticed something I'd missed before. Several homes had identical security system signs in their front yards. Pinnacle Home Security Solutions, protecting what matters most. The coincidence seemed odd. Same company, same sign design, same placement near the mailboxes. I counted them as I walked. 5 houses within view had identical signs. In a neighborhood this size, you'd expect different security companies, different systems. But these were all exactly the same. My phone buzzed with a text from Tony. On my way. This better not be another one of your "the trim isn't perfectly level" situations. I almost smiled. Tony had been my partner long enough to know I didn't call for backup unless something was genuinely wrong. 40 minutes later, Tony's white pickup pulled into the driveway. He climbed out carrying his own laser level and measuring tape, greeting me with a skeptical grin. All right, let's see this mysterious missing space that's got you spooked. Inside, Tony immediately went to work, setting up his equipment in the hallway. I watched him measure from the front wall to the back, then checked the reading twice. 27 feet, he confirmed, then looked at me. And the interior? 24 feet in the master bedroom. I've checked it 4 times. Tony walked to the bedroom, ran his measurements, then returned to the hallway. His expression had changed. That's definitely 3 feet unaccounted for, he said quietly, running his hand along the far wall. This drywall feels solid, recently painted, but he tapped the wall experimentally with his knuckles. The sound was different. Not quite hollow, but not solid either. Like there was space behind it, but not empty space. This wall sounds weird, he said, moving his hand along the surface. Feel this. I pressed my palm against the drywall where he indicated. The texture felt normal, but there was something about the temperature. It was cooler than the adjacent walls. Something's definitely behind here, Tony whispered. Question is what? We both stepped back, studying the wall's construction. The paint job was recent, maybe 6 months old. Professional work, but not perfect. Someone had been in a hurry. Look at the baseboards, Tony pointed. They don't quite line up with the wall angle, like they were installed after the wall was built. He was right. The trim work was slightly off, creating a barely noticeable gap where the baseboard met the wall. My phone buzzed with a text. On my way back. Hope you made good progress. Amanda's coming back, I told Tony. We quickly packed up the measuring equipment, but Tony grabbed my arm before heading to the door. Call me tonight. That wall definitely has something behind it. And Brett, be careful around this client. Something feels off about her. Tony had barely made it to his truck when Amanda's sedan turned into the driveway. She parked and walked straight toward us, her face flashing with anger before she composed herself. I didn't authorize additional workers, she said, her voice controlled but cold. This violates our agreement. Tony was just verifying measurements for material calculations, I explained. It's standard practice for larger jobs. One painter. That was the deal. Her hostility was unmistakable now. He needs to leave immediately. Tony gathered his remaining equipment, but as he passed me, he whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "Call me tonight." Amanda watched Tony's truck disappear down the street, then turned to me with forced calm. "Let's stick to the original plan, Mr. Collins. Just paint what you see. Nothing more." There was that phrase again, nothing more. It felt like a warning wrapped in politeness. Working alone again, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every few minutes, Amanda appeared to check my progress, her questions growing more pointed. "How much longer in this hallway?" she asked for the third time in an hour. "I'm just doing the primer coat today. Paint goes on tomorrow. And then you'll move to the bedrooms?" "That's the plan." I noticed she never left me alone near the questionable wall for more than 10 minutes. If I lingered too long in that section, she'd find a reason to appear, bringing me water, adjusting the thermostat, checking on my progress. The house's silence felt oppressive, broken only by Amanda's footsteps and occasional phone calls in distant rooms. Her conversations were always brief, cryptic. "Yes, the painter is still here. No changes to the timeline. Everything is proceeding as scheduled. The installation remains on track." As the afternoon wore on, my hands stayed steady applying primer, but my mind raced. 15 years of professional painting had taught me to trust my instincts about clients and job sites. Something was very wrong here. At 5 o'clock, I started packing my equipment. Amanda appeared immediately, counting out cash for the day's work. "Here's payment for today. Tomorrow, focus on the bedrooms first. Stay out of the hallway. It needs time to dry properly." Her instruction contradicted everything I knew about primer drying times, but I nodded agreement. "Yes, ma'am. I'll start with the master bedroom." Walking to my van, I glanced back at the house. Amanda stood at the front window, watching me leave. The 3-foot discrepancy wasn't a construction error. I was certain now. Someone had deliberately built space behind that wall. Starting my van, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I'd document everything with photos and measurements. Whatever Amanda Martinez was hiding behind that wall, I was going to figure it out. The walls don't lie, and neither would I. I pulled into the driveway at 847 Maple Grove Avenue Tuesday morning, my measuring tape and level rattling in the toolbox beside me. That 3-foot discrepancy had kept me awake most of the night. 30 years of painting houses, and walls don't just lose space. Something was behind that hallway wall, and I needed to know what. Amanda greeted me at the door with a steaming mug and that same forced smile. "Coffee? I made it extra strong this morning." Her eyes darted to my equipment bag. "What's all that for?" "Just touching up the primer today," I lied, watching her shoulders drop slightly. "Want to make sure everything's perfect before we start the finish coat." The house felt different now. Every shadow seemed suspicious, every corner potentially hiding something. I climbed the stairs to the master bedroom, my boots heavy on the hardwood. The morning light streaming through the windows revealed details I'd missed yesterday. The wall texture wasn't quite right near the window, like it had been patched and repainted multiple times. I started tapping methodically along the wall with my knuckles, listening for changes in sound. Solid thunk, solid thunk. Then suddenly, a hollow, metallic echo near the window. Definitely empty space behind there. "Everything okay up here?" I spun around. Amanda stood in the doorway, coffee mug in hand, watching me intently. "Just checking for nail pops before I paint," I said, forcing my voice to stay casual. "Don't want any surprises showing through the finish coat." She lingered, sipping her coffee, her presence suffocating. I pretended to examine the baseboard trim, but I could feel her eyes tracking my every movement. The wall definitely sounded hollow, and now that I looked closer, the paint layers told a story. Using my utility knife, I carefully scraped at the corner where the beige latex looked newest. Beneath 3 layers of paint, I found fresh joint compound, newer drywall screws. This wall had been built recently, maybe within the last 5 years, judging by the compound's color and texture. Amanda's voice drifted up from downstairs, another long phone call about system maintenance schedules and installation updates. I pulled out my phone and photographed the scraped section, my hands shaking slightly. I was uncovering something deliberately hidden, something she desperately didn't want found. I texted Tony. Need you here. Bring the stud finder and drill bits. Within an hour, his van pulled up behind mine. Tony grabbed our equipment bag and jogged up the front steps. What's got you spooked, Brett? He whispered as we climbed to the bedroom. I explained the measurements, the hollow sounds, the evidence of recent construction. Tony ran our electronic stud finder along the suspicious wall section. The device beeped rapidly, showing double stud construction, far more robust than needed for a simple interior wall. This isn't just hiding pipes or electrical, Tony muttered, studying the readings. Someone built a room back there, a big one. Footsteps creaked on the stairs below. Amanda was coming back up. She appeared moments later with a tray of fresh coffee and store-bought pastries, her hospitality aggressive and overwhelming. You boys are working so hard. I thought you might need a break. She positioned herself in the doorway where she could watch our equipment, chatting about neighborhood gossip while her eyes tracked every tool we touched. I noticed her wedding ring was gone. When had that happened? We're just being thorough, I explained, accepting the coffee to maintain appearances. Want to make sure we catch any structural issues before they become problems. Oh, there won't be any problems, Amanda said quickly. This house is solid, built to last. But her laugh sounded forced, and she kept glancing at the wall section we'd been examining. Her presence was suffocating. The fake friendliness couldn't mask the obvious anxiety radiating from her. She knew we were getting close to something, and she was terrified of what we might find. I need to run some errands, she finally announced, after watching us for another 20 minutes. You'll be okay here alone? We'll be fine, I assured her. Just primer work today. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, Tony and I moved fast. I selected a small drill bit and created a pilot hole near the baseboard where Amanda wouldn't notice, right where the wall sounded most hollow. The bit went through drywall easily, then hit empty space, then something soft. I pulled it out and examined the tip. Gray foam fragments clung to the metal. Acoustic foam, Tony whispered, rolling the material between his fingers. Professional-grade sound dampening. I enlarged the hole slightly and shined my phone's flashlight through the opening. The narrow beam revealed a corridor running parallel to the bedroom, maybe 3 feet wide, lined with the same gray acoustic material. Climate-controlled air flowed from the hidden space. Whatever was back there was actively maintained, not just dead storage. Tony, I said quietly, we need to call someone about this. My phone buzzed against my leg. Amanda's text read, back in 20 minutes. Hope the work is going smoothly. 20 minutes. That was our window. Tony, we need to see what's back there, now. He nodded, understanding the urgency. I grabbed my reciprocating saw from the van, selecting the finest blade I had. The trick was cutting slow and steady. Let the blade do the work. Don't force it. One wrong move and we'd leave obvious damage Amanda couldn't miss. I positioned the saw behind her dresser, where any small hole would be hidden. The blade bit into the drywall with a soft whisper, sending fine powder onto the hardwood floor. Tony held the shop vacuum hose right at the cut line, catching every particle. The drywall fell away in a neat rectangle, revealing exactly what we'd suspected. A 3-foot corridor lined with charcoal gray acoustic foam. LED strip lighting ran along the ceiling, casting everything in sterile white light. The air that flowed out smelled like electronics and industrial cleaning chemicals. Jesus, Tony whispered, peering inside with his flashlight. This is professional-grade construction. Someone spent serious money building this. The corridor extended the length of the house, maybe 40 feet. Cable runs were mounted along the ceiling in neat bundles, each one labeled with masking tape in precise block letters. 847 Maple Grove, 851 Maple Grove, 839 Maple Grove. The entire block. My phone showed no signal inside the space. The walls were shielded. I'm going in, I told Tony. Brett, if she comes back, 20 minutes. Keep watch. I squeezed through the opening, my work boots silent on the industrial carpeting that lined the floor. Everything was immaculate, dust-free, climate-controlled. This wasn't some amateur hiding spot. This was a professional installation that had cost tens of thousands of dollars. The corridor ended at a heavy steel door marked, "Authorized personnel only," in red letters. Through the keyhole, I glimpsed the blue glow of multiple monitors and the steady blink of recording equipment status lights. Amanda wasn't just hiding space, she was running a full surveillance operation from inside her own walls. I photographed everything: the labeled cables, the professional construction, the surveillance door. My hands shook as I documented what could only be described as a neighborhood spy network. How long had this been running? What was she recording? Brett! Tony's urgent whisper carried down the corridor. Car in the driveway. I scrambled backward, my heart hammering against my ribs. Tony helped me through the opening as Amanda's car doors slammed outside. We worked frantically to replace the drywall section, slapping joint compound over the edges with practiced speed. Act normal, I whispered, grabbing my measuring tape. We positioned ourselves at opposite ends of the room just as Amanda's key turned in the front door. I forced my breathing to steady, but the weight of what we'd discovered made the house feel like a trap we were barely escaping. I'm back, Amanda called cheerfully, her voice echoing up the stairs. She appeared moments later with grocery bags, her sharp brown eyes immediately scanning the room for changes. The friendly smile was in place, but I caught the way her gaze lingered on every surface, cataloging details. How's the progress? She asked, setting down the bags. I showed her our measuring work, pointing to areas we'd supposedly been calculating for paint coverage. Just making sure we have accurate square footage. Don't want to run short on primer. She nodded, but I watched her examine the wall near our inspection point. Her fingers traced the baseboard edge where we'd made our cut. Had we left evidence? A scuff mark? Drywall dust? I'll need to move some furniture tomorrow, she said casually, positioning herself between us and the hidden entrance. Make sure you boys can work around it. The calculation in her voice made my skin crawl. She suspected something. The friendly facade was cracking, revealing the person underneath who had spent years building a surveillance network in her walls. As we packed up tools, I noticed Amanda at her kitchen window, phone pressed to her ear. Her body language was tense, urgent. She was reporting to someone. About what? About us? Tony loaded equipment while I took final measurements, my mind racing. We had evidence of a sophisticated operation, but we needed proof that would hold up with authorities. Real proof, not just photos of cables and foam. We need to contact the police, I whispered to Tony as we headed for the van. But as we drove away, a cold realization hit me. In my excitement to document everything, I'd forgotten to turn off my phone's location services. Amanda would know exactly where I'd been inside her walls, how long I'd spent in each section. She'd have a complete digital record of my trespassing. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table reviewing the photos on my laptop. The evidence was undeniable. Amanda Martinez was running an active surveillance operation targeting the entire Riverside Heights neighborhood. The professional construction, the labeled cables, the climate-controlled equipment room. This represented years of planning and significant investment. But as I prepared to call the police, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Tomorrow. Come alone, or your son Marcus learns about your trespassing. My blood ran cold. Amanda knew about Marcus. She'd been watching me, watching my family, longer than I'd realized. The house painter had become the painted. I stared at the surveillance photos on my laptop screen until my eyes burned. The timestamp on the corner read 11:47 p.m. 3 hours since I'd fled Amanda's house with Tony. 3 hours of trying to process what we'd found in that hidden corridor. The threatening text sat open on my phone. Meet me tomorrow at 2 p.m., 847 Maple Grove. Come alone, or your son Marcus learns about his father's breaking and entering. Marcus. She knew about my 14-year-old son. I scrolled through the photos again, those cables labeled with every address on the block, the steel door marked authorized personnel only, the professional-grade acoustic foam lining that 40-foot surveillance corridor. This wasn't some paranoid neighbor with a security camera. This was something bigger. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I took another sip anyway. The bitter taste matched my mood. The house creaked around me, old wood settling, familiar sounds that usually brought comfort. Tonight, they made me jump. Every car passing outside set my heart racing. Was Amanda watching my house too? Did she have cameras pointed at my windows right now? I pulled up Google Maps and zoomed in on Riverside Heights. 47 houses on our block. How many of those labeled cables had I seen? At least a dozen, maybe more. Each one representing a family Amanda was spying on, recording, documenting. The photos showed everything clearly, too clearly. The LED lighting in that corridor wasn't some amateur setup. Someone had invested serious money in this operation. Professional installation, climate control, enough space to walk upright through 40 feet of hidden surveillance hub. My phone buzzed. Text from Tony. Can't sleep either? This is bigger than we thought. I typed back, she wants to meet tomorrow, threatened Marcus. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, we call the cops, tonight. I stared at his message. Call the cops and tell them what? That I broke into a client's wall and found a surveillance room? That I had no legal right to be there, no warrant, no permission? The photos on my laptop were evidence of my own breaking and entering as much as Amanda's spying. But Marcus, the threat was real. Amanda had been watching my family, knew my son's name, his schedule. She'd been in those walls for who knows how long, collecting information, building files on everyone. I opened the photo showing the binders again, each one labeled with a street address. 839 Maple Grove, 841 Maple Grove, 843 Maple Grove. Systematic, organized, years of work. The kitchen felt too quiet. I got up and checked the front door lock, then the back door. Pulled the curtains tighter across the windows. If Amanda had surveillance equipment pointed at every house on the block, mine was probably included. My laptop chimed with another text from Tony. Found something. Check your email. I opened my email. Tony had sent a link to the Texas Secretary of State Business Registry. A company called Pinnacle Home Security Solutions, LLC, registered to Amanda Martinez at 847 Maple Grove Avenue. Established January 2019. Home security, of course. I clicked through the business filing. Licensed contractor number HSS9847TX. The pieces were falling into place. Amanda wasn't just spying on the neighborhood. She was running some kind of security business out of that hidden room. But what kind of security company needs 40 feet of hidden surveillance corridors? What kind of security work requires acoustic foam and professional recording equipment hidden behind false walls? My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message. Brett, this is Amanda. I think we got off on the wrong foot today. I'd like to explain everything tomorrow when we meet. There's more to this situation than you understand. Come alone and I'll tell you the truth about what you found. Her voice was calm, controlled, the same tone she'd used when discussing paint thickness and primer requirements. But underneath, I heard something else. Desperation. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Tony. Evidence. If something happened to me tomorrow, at least someone would know. The clock on my laptop read 12:23 a.m. In 13 hours and 37 minutes, I was supposed to walk back into Amanda Martinez's house and face whatever truth she wanted to share. I looked at the surveillance photos one more time. Those cables, that equipment, the professional installation. This wasn't the work of one person. Amanda had help, money, resources. And tomorrow, she wanted me to come alone. I closed the laptop and headed upstairs. Sleep wasn't coming tonight, but I needed to try. Tomorrow would require all the clarity I could manage. In the darkness of my bedroom, I made a decision. I'd meet Amanda as demanded, but not alone and not unprepared. She wanted to explain the truth? Fine, but I'd be recording every word. The morning came too fast. 7:30 a.m., and I was already in my van, engine running in Amanda's driveway. Tony pulled up behind me in his beat-up Ford, tools rattling in the bed. We didn't speak as we unloaded equipment. The silence felt heavy, loaded with everything we'd discovered yesterday. Every neighbor walking their dog, every car backing out of driveways. I wondered if Amanda was watching it all through those hidden cameras. The front door opened before we could knock. Amanda stood there in a crisp white blouse and dark slacks, that same controlled smile. But her eyes were different, harder. Gentlemen, ready to finish the job? I nodded, hefting my paint bucket. Just the touch-ups left. Excellent. She stepped aside, watching us enter. I'll be running errands this morning. Should give you plenty of space to work. The way she said it made my skin crawl, like she was doing us a favor. like we were the ones who needed watching. Tony set up his ladder near the hallway, positioning himself with a clear view of the hidden wall section. We'd planned this. He'd keep watch while I worked. If Amanda left, we'd have maybe an hour before she returned. I should be back around noon, Amanda said, grabbing her purse from the kitchen counter. Lock up when you leave. The front door clicked shut. Through the window, I watched her BMW pull out of the driveway and disappear down Maple Grove Avenue. Tony looked at me. Now? My phone buzzed. Detective Chen, returning my call from last night. Mr. Collins, you mentioned having evidence of privacy violations? I put her on speaker, keeping my voice low. Yes, ma'am. Surveillance equipment, photos of the setup, hidden cameras pointed at multiple houses. Photos aren't enough for a search warrant. We need documentation. Something that proves criminal intent. Financial records, written plans, victim lists. I stared at the basement door. Those binders down there contained everything Detective Chen needed, but going back felt like walking into a trap. Can you get physical documentation? She pressed. Maybe. I'll call you back. Tony was already moving toward the basement entrance. Those filing cabinets, Brett. If there's proof of what she's doing, it's down there. What if she comes back early? Then we're screwed either way. At least this way, we get the evidence first. The basement door opened with that same metallic click. The LED strips flickered on automatically, illuminating the surveillance corridor. Those servers were still humming, still recording. Right now, they were probably capturing audio of our conversation. I grabbed the first binder from the filing cabinet. Neighborhood Profiles, 2024. Inside, detailed dossiers on every house within 3 blocks. Work schedules, vacation plans, financial information that could only come from stolen mail or electronic surveillance. Jesus, Brett, look at this. Tony held up a folder marked Overheard Conversations. Pages and pages of transcribed phone calls, private discussions between married couples, arguments about money and kids. All dated, all organized by address. My hands were shaking as I photographed each page. The camera memory was filling up fast. Hundreds of documents, years of illegal surveillance. Here's the financial stuff, Tony said, pulling out a thick binder. Billing records, Pinnacle Home Security. Invoice after invoice for security system installations that never happened. David Thornfield at 851 Maple Grove charged $18,500 for comprehensive motion sensor network. Lisa Brennan at 839 Maple Grove billed $12,800 for advanced camera system integration. All fake. All theft. I was photographing the invoices when I found it. A binder labeled Current Targets. My blood went cold. The first page had my name at the top. Brett Collins, painter, potential security risk, monitor daily. Below that, a detailed surveillance schedule. My work patterns, the times I arrived and left job sites, even photos of my van parked in various driveways around town. She'd been watching me since the day I started this job. There were pictures of me talking to Mrs. Eleanor Hoffman across the street, photos of my license plate, even a shot of me on my phone, probably calling Tony about the wall measurements. Brett Collins shows excessive curiosity about structural details, the notes read. Questions measurement discrepancies. May require intervention if investigation continues. Intervention. The basement door creaked above us. Brett, I know you're down there. Amanda's voice, no longer friendly, no longer controlled. The footsteps on the stairs came slowly, deliberately. I grabbed the current targets binder and the financial records, shoving them under my arm. Tony moved toward the stairs, but Amanda was already descending. You really shouldn't have gone exploring, she said, appearing at the bottom of the steps. Her whole demeanor had shifted. Cold, calculating, dangerous. The mask was off completely now. Tony? I called toward the stairs, but his voice sounded distant, muffled. Amanda stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You think you're helping people? These neighbors are careless, stupid. They leave doors unlocked, passwords written down, mail sitting out for anyone to steal. I backed against the server rack, the humming equipment vibrating against my spine. By stealing from them? By watching them in their homes? Her laugh was sharp, bitter. By protecting the neighborhood. By showing them their vulnerabilities before someone else exploits them. You wouldn't understand. Her hand moved toward something in her jacket pocket. The basement suddenly felt like a tomb. "Police are on their way, Brett." Tony's voice thundered down the stairs, echoing off the concrete walls. Amanda's composure cracked for the first time, her calculated mask slipping to reveal panic underneath. She lunged for the evidence in my hands, but I pulled back, clutching the binders against my chest. "You've ruined everything," she hissed, her voice raw with fury. 5 years of work, 5 years of keeping this neighborhood safe." I edged toward the stairs, Tony's heavy footsteps blocking Amanda's path above. Outside, the distant sound of sirens grew closer. The neighborhood surveillance network was about to become evidence in a criminal case. The basement felt like a tomb. Amanda stood between me and the stairs, her hands still hovering near her jacket pocket. The police sirens were getting closer, maybe 2 blocks away now. "You have no idea what you've done," she said, her voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. 5 years of keeping this neighborhood safe. 5 years of preventing break-ins, watching for suspicious activity, making sure families like yours could sleep soundly. I clutched the evidence binders tighter against my chest. "Safe? You've been stealing from these people, billing them for fake security systems while you spy on their private lives. I provide a service." Her composure cracked completely. "Do you think Mrs. Hoffman's house stayed burglar-free by accident? Do you think the Valdez family's vacation went unnoticed by criminals because of luck?" The sirens were on our street now. Blue and red lights flickered through the basement windows. "Tony," I called up the stairs, "tell them we're down here." Amanda's hand moved toward her pocket again. "You're going to destroy everything. Years of careful work, protecting people who don't even understand what real security means." "Protection?" I backed against the server rack, feeling the heat from the electronics through my shirt. "You've got recordings of private conversations, detailed schedules of when people leave their houses, financial information. This isn't protection, it's predation." Heavy footsteps echoed above us, car doors slamming outside, radio chatter getting closer. Amanda's face twisted into something I'd never seen before, raw desperation mixed with rage. "They'll never understand. None of them will. You've ruined 5 years of keeping this neighborhood perfect." "Perfect?" I held up one of the binders. "David Thornfield paid you $18,000 for a security system that doesn't exist. Lisa Brennan has been sending you monthly payments for cameras you never installed. That's not perfect. That's theft." The basement door opened above us. "Police! Anyone down there?" "Here," I shouted. "We're in the basement." Amanda finally pulled her hand from her pocket. Not a weapon, a cell phone. Her fingers moved frantically across the screen. "What are you doing?" "Damage control," she said through gritted teeth. "Remote wipe protocols. You think I'd keep everything in one location?" Heavy boots on the wooden stairs. Detective Sarah Chen appeared first, gun drawn but lowered, followed by 2 uniformed officers. "Mr. Collins, are you injured?" "No, but she's trying to destroy evidence." I pointed at Amanda's phone. "Some kind of remote deletion." Chen moved quickly, hand extended. "Ma'am, I need you to put the phone down and step away from Mr. Collins." Amanda looked between the detective and her phone screen. For a moment, I thought she might comply. Then her thumb jabbed at the screen one final time. "Too late," she whispered. The server behind me emitted a series of beeps. Status lights began flashing red across the equipment rack. Chen grabbed Amanda's wrists, securing the phone. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for fraud, unlawful surveillance, and obstruction of justice." As they cuffed her, Amanda looked directly at me. "You have no idea what you've unleashed. This neighborhood was safe because of me. Now you'll see what happens when people aren't being watched." The officers led her upstairs. Chen examined the server rack, watching the blinking lights with concern. "Looks like she triggered some kind of data destruction," she said. "But we've got your photos and the physical evidence. That might be enough." I handed her the binders, my hands finally steady. "There's more upstairs. Filing cabinets full of surveillance reports, billing records. She's been running this operation for years." Chen nodded, speaking into her radio. "I need the tech team down here immediately. Possible data destruction in progress." 20 minutes later, I stood in Amanda's driveway, watching crime scene technicians carry out box after box of evidence. The neighborhood had gathered, curious faces peering from doorways and windows. Mrs. Hoffman approached me, her cane clicking on the sidewalk. Brett, dear, what on earth is happening? The police won't tell us anything. I looked at her weathered face, thinking about her file in Amanda's basement. Mrs. Hoffman, you might want to check your bank statements. Look for any charges from something called Pinnacle Home Security Solutions. Her eyes widened. Oh my. I've been paying them for 3 years. Monthly automatic deductions for my security monitoring service. How much? $240 a month. Amanda said it was necessary after the Henderson break-in. She paused, realization dawning. But Brett, I don't have a security system. Just the old deadbolt my husband installed in 1987. My stomach dropped. $240 monthly for 3 years. Over $8,000 from this one elderly woman alone. Mrs. Hoffman, you need to call your bank immediately. Cancel any automatic payments to that company. Detective Chen appeared beside us. Ma'am, I'm Detective Chen. I'll need to speak with you about your financial relationship with Ms. Martinez. As Chen led Mrs. Hoffman away, Tony jogged over from his truck. Jesus, Brett. The whole street's talking. Half these people think you're some kind of hero. The other half think you caused all this trouble. I watched the evidence boxes being loaded into police vehicles. What do you think? I think you did the right thing. But it's going to cost us work in this neighborhood. He was probably right. Word would spread that Brett Collins was the painter who called the cops on a client. Some people would see it as integrity. Others would see it as betrayal of trust. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw the news. Need interior work done. Honest contractor preferred. Can you call? Robert Valdez, 855 Maple Grove. I showed Tony the message. He grinned. Maybe not all the work. Detective Chen returned, notebook in hand. Mr. Collins, we're going to need you to come to the station tomorrow for a formal statement. What you've uncovered here, it's bigger than we initially thought. How much bigger? Preliminary count shows at least 23 victims. Total fraud amount could exceed $200,000. She paused, looking at Amanda's house. You may have saved this neighborhood from years more of this. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with Marcus, helping him with algebra homework while the day's events replayed in my mind. The house felt different somehow, more secure, knowing Amanda's cameras were no longer recording our conversations. Dad? Marcus looked up from his textbook. Kids at school are saying you caught some kind of spy lady. Something like that. She was watching people without permission and stealing their money. Were we in danger? I thought about Amanda's file on our family, the detailed notes about our routines, Marcus's school schedule, my work patterns. Maybe. But not anymore. My phone rang. Detective Chen. Mr. Collins, I wanted to update you. The tech team recovered most of the surveillance data before the wipe completed. We've identified 47 fraudulent invoices totaling over $280,000. $280,000. There's more. We found evidence she was selling neighborhood information to third parties. Home security schedules, vacation dates, valuable property inventories. This wasn't just fraud, it was organized intelligence gathering. I looked out my kitchen window at the quiet street, porch lights glowing, families settling in for the evening, unaware of how thoroughly their privacy had been violated. What happens now? Federal charges, most likely. The scope of this operation crosses state lines. FBI will probably take over the case. Chen paused. Mr. Collins, what you did took courage. A lot of people would have just finished the job and walked away. After hanging up, I was staring at my paint-stained hands. 23 years of honest work, measuring twice and cutting once, building a reputation one careful brushstroke at a time. Amanda had tried to turn that integrity against me, using my thoroughness to hide her crimes. But integrity isn't something you can measure with a laser level. It's not about the perfect cut or the smooth finish. It's about doing what's right, even when it costs you something. Marcus closed his textbook and looked at me seriously. Dad, are you going to keep painting houses after all this? Yeah, son. That's what I do. I make things look better than they were before. Even if people don't trust you now? I thought about Mrs. Hoffman's grateful handshake, Robert Valdez's text message, the evidence boxes that would help dozens of victims recover their stolen money. The right people will trust me. That's all that matters. Outside, Riverside Heights settled into its evening rhythm. But now it was a neighborhood free from Amanda Martinez's watchful eyes, her hidden cameras, her systematic violation of privacy disguised as protection. I'd started this job expecting to spend 2 weeks painting walls and trim. Instead, I'd uncovered a criminal operation that had been stealing from my neighbors for years. Sometimes the most important work isn't the work you plan to do. The next morning, I was loading paint cans into my truck when David Thornfield approached from across the street. 70-something, silver hair, the kind of careful walk that comes with age and dignity. "Mr. Collins?" His voice carried that teacher authority, measured, clear. "Detective Chen told me you're the one who exposed Amanda Martinez." I set down the 5-gallon bucket of primer. "Just doing my job, sir." "No." He stepped closer, and I could see his hands trembling slightly. Not from age, from anger. She was recording my grandchildren when they visited. 8 and 10 years old, playing in my backyard. 5 years of footage. The weight of that hit me. I've been thinking about financial fraud, privacy violations, the technical aspects. But kids? Playing in their grandfather's yard, unaware they were being watched, cataloged, studied? "She had notes," David continued, his voice getting stronger, "about their schedules, their parents' work patterns, when the house would be empty." Detective Chen showed me the files. He gripped my forearm with surprising strength. "Thank you for having the courage to speak up." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Behind David, I could see other neighbors watching from their porches, their windows. Word travels fast in a place like Riverside Heights. Carmen Santos waved from behind the hardware store counter as I walked past an hour later. She gave me a thumbs up, mouthing, "Good job," through the glass. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed over familiar aisles of screws and paint samples, but everything felt different now. Customers glanced at me with recognition, some nodding approval, others just curious. My phone rang. Detective Chen again. "Mr. Collins, final count came in. 17 felony charges against Amanda Martinez. Illegal surveillance, fraud, conspiracy, privacy violations. We found equipment monitoring 15 different homes. Some footage goes back 5 years." I leaned against my truck in the parking lot, processing the scope. 5 years. Amanda had been watching, recording, cataloging the private lives of 15 families for half a decade. "The federal prosecutor wants to meet with you next week. This case is going to be a landmark for surveillance privacy laws." After hanging up, I sat in the truck cab, staring at 847 Maple Grove Avenue, visible down the street. The house looked normal from here, white Victorian with green shutters, neat lawn, the kind of place you'd want to raise kids. But I knew what was hidden inside those walls, or had been, before the police removed it all. 3 weeks later, Tony and I sat in Murphy's Diner, our usual Thursday lunch spot. Red vinyl booths, coffee that could strip paint, and waitresses who'd been here since the Carter administration. "5 new jobs this month," Tony said, spreading estimates across the scratched Formica table. "Word's getting around that you're the honest contractor who stood up to surveillance crazy." I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl. "Doesn't feel like I did anything special." "Brett." Tony's voice got serious. "Most people would have just finished the job and walked away. Painted over that wall, collected their check, never said a word." He was right. I could have done exactly that. Should have, maybe. It would have been easier. "Mrs. Henderson on Oak Street specifically requested you," Tony continued. "Said her neighbor told her you're the most thorough painter in the city, and honest enough to speak up when something's wrong. My insurance company had sent a check the week before, compensation for the lost contract, potential income, legal expenses. It didn't cover everything, but it helped. More importantly, it felt like validation that I'd done the right thing. The courthouse smelled like old wood and nervous sweat on the day of Amanda's sentencing. I sat in the back row, uncomfortable with the attention, but committed to seeing this through. The room filled with neighbors I recognized from Riverside Heights. David Thornfield in the front row, Mrs. Eleanor Hoffman clutching her purse, Robert Valdez with his wife. Judge Patricia Morrison, no relation to Jake the building inspector, reviewed the case with methodical precision that reminded me of my own measuring techniques. "Ms. Martinez, you systematically violated the privacy of dozens of families over 5 years. You stole not just money, but peace of mind. The psychological impact of knowing one's most private moments were recorded and cataloged cannot be quantified." Amanda stood straight-backed in her orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed behind her. Even now, she maintained that rigid posture, that sense of control. 4 years in federal prison. Full restitution to all victims. Lifetime ban from security-related businesses. The gavel's bang echoed through the wood-paneled room. As Amanda was led away, she turned to scan the courtroom one final time. Her eyes found mine across the crowded space. No words passed between us, but I saw something that might have been respect mixed with hatred. Recognition that I'd outmaneuvered her using the same attention to detail she'd tried to exploit. 6 months later, I was back to what I did best, making walls look better than they were before. Mrs. Eleanor Hoffman watched from her kitchen doorway as I rolled primer over fresh drywall in her living room. My neighbor recommended you specifically, Mr. Collins. Said you're not just thorough, but trustworthy. I smiled, focusing on maintaining even coverage, no drips or missed spots. Through her front window, I could see 847 Maple Grove Avenue, with its for sale sign still planted in the front yard. Empty. The realtor had told me potential buyers were spooked by the house's history. It might sit empty for years. My phone buzzed with another job inquiry. The afternoon light streamed through clean windows, illuminating fresh paint and straight lines. Everything measured twice, cut once, done right the first time. Sometimes the most important work isn't the work you plan to do. Sometimes integrity costs you a contract, but earns you something more valuable. The knowledge that you stood up when it mattered. I dipped my brush in the trim